"I only married you because you were the safe option," stated my entitled wife. "Thanks for that," I answered. After that, I moved the money, wrote a letter, and vanished. When I came back, I discovered that my wife of 6 years, Clara, 32F, was having an affair. The finding wasn't dramatic. It was simple. Her laptop was left open on the kitchen counter. I don't know why, but I clicked on a man named Julian in a chat window that had minimized but not closed while she was taking a shower. I may have already known that it contained a year's worth of messages, a year of my life that was turning into a well-planned stage play with trips and a future. He called her his muse, and she called him her soulmate. I felt the blood drain from my face, and my hands began to shake. So I gripped the edge of the granite worktop for a moment. The sound of the refrigerator's hum was so loud that I had to steady myself. I thought I would pass out on the floor, but instead of feeling angry, I felt something colder, heavier, and a deep, crushing clarity. Everything suddenly became clear to me, including the late nights she spent working at her marketing job and her sudden love with an indie band I had never heard of. Her thumb would hover over her phone screen. The reason I married him was because he was the safe and stable choice. He was a good starter home. However, you, Julian, are the beachfront mansion, a starter home, a sensible low-risk asset, something you use until you can afford what you really want. I scrolled up my movements, which were stiff and robotic, and I needed to see the beginning. Then I came across the line that stopped my heart. They were talking about me. He sounds so predictable. It was a defense mechanism. I realized that. Now that the emotional reality was too vast and catastrophic, my brain did what it does best and created a wall and a plan. She believed that I was predictable and safe, but she had no idea how dangerous safe could be. When she decided to stop playing the game, I didn't confront her because there would be no screaming match, no opportunity for her to use gaslighting and tears. I'm a systems architect who works remotely and recently finished a brutal 3-month project. I had a large pile of paid time off saved up, so I logged into my work portal and requested 4 weeks off with immediate effect for a personal family matter that was vague enough. I had to be as methodical in my response as she was in her deception. Would be authorized by the automated system before my manager even noticed it. Next, I went to the bank and transferred the daily maximum to my personal checking account. The remaining amount would have to wait until the morning. I also set a reminder on my phone. I called the bank at 8 a.m., packed my work laptops and other necessities and clothing, hard drives, and the watch that belonged to my grandfather. I left everything undisturbed, including the books on my nightstand, the designer clothes, the pricey lotions and potions, and the carefully chosen assortment of vintage teacups. Lastly, I placed a single post-it note on her laptop screen and placed it directly over the chat. "You call me a starter home. I appreciate your candor and consider this my down payment back. The remainder is for your mansion." I grabbed my keys, went out the door, got into my car, turned off my phone, put it in the glove box, and drove. I had a cheap burner phone that I had purchased for the trip still in its box, and I planned to set it up later. Instead of staying at a hotel or visiting a friend, I drove 6 hours south until the signs for a small coastal town that I remembered from a family vacation years ago began to appear. I discovered a sleepy update. After 3 weeks, my vacation has been a strange combination of numb productivity and gut-wrenching anxiety. I set up my workstation in the motel with a weekly rate and a vacancy sign flickering in the salt air. I paid for 2 weeks in cash for the first time in 6 years. I was completely off the grid and unpredictable, and I knew with absolute certainty that the chaos I'd left behind was just getting started. This inexpensive motel room's corner the quiet work has kept me from going crazy, and the Wi-Fi is surprisingly good. I've been using it for a few hours every day to clear out my backlog of emails and make it look like I'm just taking a very low-key vacation. My best friend Mark is my true informant to the world I left behind, and after 2 days of silence, I called him on the burner phone just to let him know I am Mom, who has always loved Clara, bought it hook, line, and sinker when I didn't magically reappear. Mark claimed that she began telling people that I was unstable and having some sort of breakdown because I hadn't driven into a ditch the first week, which was exactly what I had predicted. Clara went into full worried wife mode and called my parents and friends, crying and asking how I could just vanish. On Monday morning at 8:01 a.m., I was on the phone with the bank to get the rest of our joint savings transferred. It took some effort, but it was a joint account, and I was on it. Apparently, Clara called them around noon after hearing from a mutual friend who works there that she caused a massive scene yelling charges. I emailed our landlord to explain that I was moving out and wanted to start the break clause, but he wasn't as understanding as I had hoped. He reminded me that the lease is a joint agreement, meaning that both tenants are responsible for the full rent until the end of the term or until the break penalty is paid and a new lease is signed. The biggest difficulty is that my name is still on the hook for the time being because the tenant was discovered and didn't care about our personal drama. He simply wanted his money. There are significant structural problems with Julian's beachside house. He is a bartender with grandiose illusions who rents a small room in a shared loft. His work consists of a collection of unsold canvases collecting dust. Mark did some minor social media spying on the man. Professional charmer and broke as hell, Clara is stuck because she doesn't have any money. Her soulmate probably can't share an Uber, let alone a security deposit, and she has an apartment that she can't possibly afford on her own salary. The emotionally charged section occurred last night when my mother sent me a series of texts that Mark Clara forwarded, calling her crazy. My mother is now certain that I am the monster. She made a terrible mistake, but you've abandoned her with nothing. This isn't you. You don't cruelly discard 6 years of life. It's easy to plan the ideal retaliation when you're just moving pieces. On a board, it's much harder when the pieces are your own family. I'm returning next week, not to make amends, but because this needs to be resolved. Reading that while sitting alone in this sterile room that smells of bleach and sea salt made me feel exhausted rather than cold or logical. A clash I have to write the update too because I'm staying at Mark's apartment, and this requires a conclusion. When I turned on my old phone as soon as I got back, it was like opening a floodgate. A series of alerts, missed calls, voicemails, and messages. I texted Clara once, saying, "We need to talk about the lease tomorrow at noon," and she immediately agreed. This was a digital monument to her spiraling panic. I sat on the couch we bought together after arguing for a week about fabric swatches, and I waited until she arrived at noon on the dot. She was dressed up, her makeup flawless, and the wronged wife was beautiful in her tragedy. It was a performance, and I was the intended audience. The place felt strange in the beginning. Her belongings were all over the place, but the soul was gone. Hesitant and gentle, she needed me to be a mess, to be angry, and my calmness was a language she didn't understand. She launched into a speech she had obviously been practicing, and it was all there. The apologies, the terrible mistake, and they talk about how she was lost and Julian had taken advantage of her. I replied, "You look okay." I am, without any heat or sarcasm, just a fact that threw her off balance. She never once said, "I cheated." I let her finish, and when she finished staring at me with teary eyes, I simply nodded. "So that's the story you're telling people." It's good, a little thin on personal responsibility, but the emotional beats are there, I said. It was always couched in passive, vague terms, and it was something that happened to her. The mask broke, and I'm giving it my all. "You're acting like a no-no." That was the first genuine reaction I'd seen. I said, bending forward and speaking quietly. "I'm the audience member who read the book before seeing the movie, and I know the real script." I read the chat logs. "Clara, all of them." She recoiled physically. As though it were the real crime, she muttered, "You weren't supposed to see that. I know the safe option. He was supposed to keep driving and not check under the hood, right?" Then the tears that I knew were coming, the ugly, desperate ones that made me ask myself, what am I supposed to do? "You stole all the money," she said, "and the landlord threatened to evict me if I didn't pay him. I have nothing, but you have Julian. Julian is your soulmate," I said steadily. "It's not simple. He's broke," she sputtered. "I know it's not that complicated," I said. "Here's the deal. I'm going to my lawyer's office this afternoon. We're filing for divorce. I'm citing adultery. It's going to be messy. You can't prove anything," she shot. Her head snapped up in rage, replacing the tears. "You have no right to." "I have every right. You made my life your business, so I made your affair mine." A year's worth of timestamped conversation logs have been downloaded to a hard drive and are now in a safety deposit box. It states that I can now terminate the lease, and that I'm ready to pay the break penalty to have my name removed, giving you till the end of the next month to decide what to do next. Her expression was one of incredulity and anger, and she exclaimed, "This is the reason I returned. Clara, what about the money and savings that were ours?" "Wasn't. And this is the part you really need to hear. Do you recall the prenuptial agreement you signed that you called unromantic and insulting? My dad's lawyer insisted on it, and I recall that you didn't want to read it. You just signed it. It contains a clause that states that in the event of a divorce brought on by adultery, Assets will be divided based on direct contribution. As I contributed roughly 90% of it, you can do the arithmetic. I have the pay stubs to confirm that there are funds in that savings account. I said, "You're a bastard," and walked to the door. She screamed at my back, "You're a cold, empty bastard." I didn't say, "My lawyer has already filed," because I didn't need the cheap drama. The truth was colder and harder. The process was just getting started, and it was going to be a long, slow grind. "My lawyer will be in touch with yours." No, as I had predicted, the divorce was a slow, costly, and soul-crushing grind. Clara hired a lawyer who tried every tactic in the book to contest the prenuptial agreement, claiming I had coerced her. They contested the prenuptial agreement, arguing that I had forced her. I said, my voice barely above a whisper, I was a starter home. Now I'm just empty. Final update. It has been 8 months. Emotionally abusive, my own sister testified on her behalf, citing my quiet demeanor as evidence of my cold manipulation, and she expressed concern for my mental stability after I vanished. This was a new kind of pain, as each accusation cost me money and legal fees to deny, and each delay was another pound of flesh. Ultimately, after months of shedding money and sanity, the judge upheld the prenuptial agreement, and the chat logs were unquestionably, I saved the majority of the money, but my goodness, the price was high. There was no spectacular movie scene, just a silent decision in a stuffy courtroom. When Clara's financial condition became apparent, the beachside mansion she had to move back in with her parents, and Julian disappeared. According to Mark, she had a complete breakdown and lost her job because she simply stopped showing up. She is now a ghost, a warning story that people mutter about at parties. And to be honest, it doesn't make me happy. Instead, it makes me feel incredibly sad about the 6 years we wasted together. She built her entire identity around a lifestyle, and when the money ran out, she collapsed. My life isn't perfect. It's a quiet one, and my relationship with my mom is slowly getting better. She apologized after the court proceedings revealed everything. But there's a scar there, a scar of her doubting me when two think I'm the antagonist in her story, and perhaps from her point of view, I am. I sold the couch, the dining table, and every piece of furniture we chose together, and I moved into a smaller, simpler apartment in a different area of the city. I've been going to therapy, which is helping me understand why I was so willing to be the safe option and why I disregarded the 1,000 little warning signs. I needed her the most. For years, she waved. The other day, I received an email from an old co-worker of ours that I hadn't spoken to in years. She had heard about it through rumors, and she wrote, I know what it's like to have your world fall apart. It sounds like you didn't just walk away. You had to amputate to survive. I hope you're healing. I was complicit in my own invisibility. That one email from a complete stranger that showed understanding felt more like a win than the bank statement or the judge's decision. I'm standing in the wreckage of the life I believed I had, slowly and painstakingly clearing everything away. It's hard, quiet work, but the land is mine, and I get to choose what to do with it. Everything's not a story about winning. It's about surviving a demolition. Next, build on it.